Good morning, it's Lisa with Lisa Heal Yourself. Today we are going to talk about boundaries. Setting boundaries, keeping boundaries, and what to do if somebody breaks your boundaries. So for those of you who have chronic illness, whether it is severe physical chronic illness or it's mental and emotional illnesses, we know that setting boundaries is important for our recovery. Taking back our own power and control in our lives so that we can heal ourselves. So boundaries become very important. What is a boundary? Boundary is basically, it's a wall. It's a no. It's a line. Imagine drawing a line in the sand. These are my expectations. This is what I expect. This is what I will accept. This is what I will do. This is what I will not do. And it's very clear. So when we're setting boundaries, we need to be sure to articulate clearly where our limits are, where our line is, when no means no, okay? If we are not clear with our boundaries, if we have a sliding scale, if the line changes in different situations, if there's a lot of gray, if we don't verbalize our boundaries, if we keep them inside and expect other people to read our mind, these are all reasons why your boundaries might get pushed or violated. So first of all, you have to make a boundary very, very clear. A boundary has to be specific, clear, clearly articulated, and then we have to be able to hold space around that boundary, hold our head up high, hold our values around that boundary. When the boundary is overstepped, we need to act or react. Have a conversation. Let them know that that went over the boundary. So often when someone violates a boundary, we don't say, well, that's it, the relationship's over, you're out of my life. You know, whether it's a personal relationship or whether it's a work relationship, we often don't cut things off straight away. It's not helpful to cut something off immediately. What is helpful is restating your boundaries, explaining your boundaries, being very clear and effective in communicating your boundaries. Really, there's not just a line, right? There's not just a line where everything on this side of the line is fine, it's totally acceptable, and anything on this side of the line is just like over my tolerance and has totally violated and breached my boundary. There's usually quite a gray period, and that's why boundaries can be confusing. Because often we sense someone approaching our boundary, we feel internally like a boundary, is coming up to. It's more like a gray area, a yellow light, right? And on a stop sign. And we can sense it coming. We feel this is getting into the territory. Then we begin to feel uncomfortable. We think we might be over our boundary. We let it go longer. Maybe we even cross over our boundary slightly. We don't like what's happening, but we continue to tolerate it. And then at some point it goes beyond our comfort level and we're just like in the depths of a boundary that has been violated. Often this can leave us feeling completely violated, feeling totally triggered, right? Traumatized when we wait till the final hour, till the last possible moment to speak up on our boundaries being violated. So this is why it's important that we speak up early. Earlier is better, right? Setting expectations sooner. Saying, this is starting to creep into territory of a boundary. Just want you to know when it gets there, this is what my boundary is. Most of us are afraid to speak up early. We as a society like to please. We don't like to offend. We don't like to get people mad at us. We feel really guilty about sticking up for ourselves and making our own boundaries known. So often we go along with things for as long as possible. We feel scared that what people will think of us, embarrassed, feeling like maybe we'll be shunned or looked down upon or ousted from the tribe. And we also desperately want people to like us. And so it makes us keep quiet for as long as possible until, again, we simply can no longer tolerate what's happening. So it is always, always, always important to speak up early, to not worry about what people think of you or whether they like you, or worry about the fear of them abandoning you, judging you, criticizing you, looking down on you, maybe whispering about you behind your back, not liking you, what they think of you. These are all things that we as humans really have a problem with. And it keeps us silent for way too long. So again, we can have external boundaries being broken by other people. And then we can have internal boundaries being broken by ourselves. Often we make a boundary to ourselves, we'll go right up to the line, we'll cross over it, we'll get mad at ourselves, we'll violate our own boundaries, and then we will pile extra guilt on ourselves because we can't even stand up for ourselves. We can't even hold the line of our boundaries in place. So when it comes to healing chronic illness, we have a lot of our own internal boundaries to make, to draw those lines, to be very clear to ourselves what we will accept and what we won't accept, what our behavior needs to be and what it won't be. And we need to follow through with that. We need to listen. Even though no one's heard that out loud, it's still important that we follow through with upholding our end of the bargain and not letting ourselves be violated. And then there are other people who violate our boundaries, which trigger us a lot more, and we feel guilty as well. Because we don't want them to be mad at us. So we allow them to violate our boundaries just because we want to continue the relationship and we want to be liked and we want to be thought of as good people. And then when we let them break our boundaries, we then feel guilty to ourselves. We feel mad at ourselves, angry at ourselves, and our self-esteem lowers and we start to beat ourselves up. So in both situations, whether it's internal or external, it's really important to hold your own integrity. Just the important things, right? Because if you have too many boundaries and too many rules, it can be hard for yourself and it can be hard for anyone to please you. We have to be able to let things go as well and not force other people to do things they don't want to do, right? We can't have too many things in place, but we need to have a strong ethical backbone that says, these are the main things. This is the thing I will not tolerate. This is the boundary that cannot be broken for me, right? Many other things we do have to let go. We do have to, not try to control other people, not try to control the world. At a certain point, we need to walk away if we just can't accept the way a relationship is or another person is. It's not up to them to change always, constantly. But there are some certain key boundaries when you're healing from chronic illness, whether mental or physical or emotional, that you need to put in place to protect yourself, to protect your healing. And they're very clear, concise, and these are the main things, your main values that you can't bend on. Okay, so let's talk at society at large right now. We all know what's going on in the world, and we all know what we're being asked to do. And some of us may have done it and feel guilty that we've done it, and we've done it just to please others. We've done it to keep the status quo, to make our family happy, to appear to be good citizens and good people, and we might feel badly about it inside because maybe we've crossed one of our own boundaries or we feel violated, yet we've done it anyway. And some of us have continued to hold the line and say no. No means no. But when we're talking about the world, sort of larger things are at stake. You maybe have to feed yourself, you have to work, you're being coerced, you're being told you will be shunned, you're being guilted on at a higher level. You need to know where your line is, because no means no for something small and no means no for something big. No means no. Your personal boundaries don't change, or your boundaries don't change just because of the person imposing them, right? So if you are a college student, flirting with a boy out for a drink and having a crush on this person, but he crosses a sexual line and you say no, and he continues to go and you say no, where that boundary is, that boundary line is the same as if you were in a dark back alley and there is, 5 strangers getting ready to push you down and force themselves on you sexually and rape you. There's a boundary there. Now, no matter how different those situations are, there's still a violation that can take place if the boundary isn't upheld. And in some cases, the boundary creeps up slowly, As in the case where at first you're okay with what's happening, you actually like the person, you think things are going well, and then they are slowly creeping up to your boundary line and crossing over it, and you need to take action, be clear, and if they continue, that's a violation, right? But it happens slowly and there's a lot of gray. Or if you're in a back alley and right away, as soon as these men come at you to rape you, you're already saying no right away off the beginning and forcefully, and then the violation happens. They're still going to end in the same violation happening to you. So, so when you relate this to what's going on in the world, no still means no. Your personal body and your personal health and your autonomy is yours. Your decisions for your body are your decisions for your body. But in the beginning, if maybe your family is saying, I wish you would go roll up your sleeve and have this done, and you're saying no, where your boundary is, and your government sort of urging you to do it, or the newscasts are pointing you in the direction and incentivizing you to do this, you still may have a boundary, but it's grayer than if the government suddenly mandates it or forces it, right? That's much more like a gang rape when you're being forced. So, but no still means no in either situation. Often though, we feel like when we're overpowered, like as in the situation with the gang rape, or as in the situations if governments just say, this is mandatory, necessary, you won't work, you can't live, you can't participate in society, and, or, in some countries where they're literally taking people and kind of locking them away until they comply. So, you have different varying degrees of boundaries being violated. Whether the force seems, like a friendly person who's pushing too hard, as in the date rape situation, or whether it's a total stranger, a bully, a bunch of powerful people in the back alley, or whether it's just your family members trying to tell you what to do, or your friends or your community, or maybe you're on a message board with people, or whether it's the big scary governments or your employers or bigger, more forceful agencies and people telling you what to do. The result is still the same. We still say our clear boundaries. We still say no means no. We still say our body is our own. We still are very clear about where the line is, and we speak up early if we can. We don't wait until it gets to the end. We go to our employer early. We say, this is, coming up to a line for me. Can we work out a situation? There's lots of things that we can do to say no. Being a little more vocal, speaking up on message boards, speaking up in the community, speaking up just at that awkward conversation when your family and friends are just talking about it and you normally would just stay silent just to have them like you, right? Silence is also compliance, is also violating sometimes our own internal boundaries and just making us generally feel bad, lowering the self-esteem because we're giving away power, even just not to say something, right? In a sense, sometimes silence is complying. So as you're healing from chronic illness, maybe it's physical illness, and you say to yourself, okay, I'm going on this diet. I'm going to go on this healing diet, and I'm going to draw my line in the sand. I'm not going to be eating gluten. I'm not going to be eating grains. I'm not going to be eating dairy, right? And you just decide not to put this in your body, right? You've made the decision. This is the diet that's going to heal me. I'm not eating grains or gluten or dairy anymore. Say this is what you do. It's going to be difficult for you. So in one case, you may violate your own boundaries where you go up to the line, there's something you really want to eat, you're not strong enough, you go over it, you beat yourself up, and you have your self-worth lowered, you feel bad and guilty, you bring guilt and shame on yourself in a way to remind yourself never to do that again, and you use it to propel you to make a better choice next time. Okay, so this may be one way that you violate your boundaries. Or, second way, you may go to an in-law's house and they're cooking a meal and that's full of gluten, grains, and dairy, and you may be there enjoying dinner with family and friends, and you may want to ask them to prepare something for you that's gluten and dairy free, but you're ashamed to speak up. So that lowers your self-worth. You feel, again, shame and guilt, and you go and you eat the meal because you just want to be liked, and then you feel badly about yourself, but you certainly can't blame them. So again, this is an internal violation. You're mad at yourself. You feel shame and guilt on yourself. You beat yourself up. Your self-worth lowers, and you feel really badly. So the next time you get invited to dinner, you either ask them to prepare you something, or you say you bring your own. You say, I'm actually on a new diet. You're strong enough to be clear and concise. I'm actually on a new diet that doesn't allow me to eat gluten and dairy, and I'm doing this to improve my health. And so I've prepared a meal for myself. I hope you won't be offended, but these are the ingredients that I'm allowed to eat, so I'll just eat it. You go, you bring it to the house, and then maybe you get looks. Maybe you feel like there's some silent shame or guilt, or a few comments directed your way. Or maybe people say, I don't see why you can't eat this. You've always eaten this. Or maybe they give you a hard time. Maybe they say, oh, come on, just have it. I made a special dessert, or I made something really special. I really want you to try it. And we start to creep up to the line. And this is where we need to assert our authority and say, no, I'm sorry, it looks delicious, but I'm simply just going to eat what I brought. And then we're worried, right? Internally, does this person like me anymore? Have I offended them? And either they or we guilt and shame us into compliance, right? Into, I should just go ahead and eat the cake because they've guilted me or shamed me, or they keep saying how they made it especially for me, and I just need to take a bite, and maybe they're not giving up, and they're not backing down, and they're putting the cake in front of me, and it's a very awkward situation. Okay, I'll just cross my boundary here and eat the cake. And then of course we have massive shame and guilt that has been directed on both sides, an external and an internal shaming and guilting and making us feel bad. But we let it happen, so we can't really blame the other person. So now maybe we get into the more forceful side. You're going to maybe a restaurant, and you tell the chef or you tell the person and you say, I'm sorry, can you prepare something with this? And they say, no, I'm sorry, we don't have this on the menu, or we can't prepare that. And you say, I'll bring my own. And they say, I'm sorry, we won't allow that in here. So you have two choices at this point: to feel outcasted, to not eat anything, to sit at a table amongst your friends or coworkers or families, not eating at all, having to explain and justify your situation, yourself, maybe feeling intimidated, feeling judged and shamed and guilted for sitting there fasting while everyone else is eating. Maybe you feel like people are saying, just go ahead and eat. You have external guilt, and you have pressure because they won't allow you another option. There is no other choice. So you either starve or you comply, you eat. The embarrassment increases, the inner shame and guilt, and the outer guilt and shame, and the judgment and the criticism, and the, oh my gosh, I'm being shunned, I'm being outed, I'm not part of the tribe anymore. The wondering whether people like you, wondering whether they're going to continue to be your friend. Will they ever invite you out to dinner again? This kind of a situation starts to happen. So the violation is much deeper at this point, and it becomes more difficult, right? Especially when we haven't complied this time, we've said no. Then there's a deeper shame and guilt and feeling of isolation, loneliness, worried, a lot more shame and inner guilt. And will they like me? What will they say about me? What will they think about me? So let's take it one last step further, which is what's happening in the world, government wise right now. And this is like them saying, all right, well, you've decided not to eat gluten or dairy, or this is your choice. You don't want to put this in your body, but you can no longer dine at this restaurant. You can no longer set foot in the door. You can no longer work anymore. You can't come over. You can't be our friend. We won't like you anymore. We won't tolerate you being in society anymore. We're going to blacklist you from society. You won't be able to feed your family. We're going to take your rights away. So you better just get with the program and start eating the food with the gluten and dairy. And we have to decide at that point, like, is this important enough to us, to our own body, to our own healing protocol? And if it is, we have to be strong enough to say no means no. I decide what I eat. I decide what I put in my body. That is my right, and I won't be forced, bullied, coerced, or shamed and guilted into complying with the menu on the table when I can eat this, when I don't want to eat that. So again, that kind of a violation crushes self-esteem. It increases shame and guilt to the point of completely isolated, shut off, not part of the tribe. We're getting into the realm of being traumatized, victimized, right? This is an equivalent to a gang rape. So again, whether it's a boy that you have a crush on at a party who is crossing a line, or whether it's a gang rape of 12 angry men in a back alley, you decide what goes into your body. And there's a line that you've decided is not okay to cross, and that, for lack of a better word, that male organ is not coming into your body, period, no matter from what source, and no matter how bad you're bullied, coerced, or how much guilt, shame, fear, all of those emotions that you feel. Or maybe, people look away and they say, oh, that's okay, you asked for it. You wore a sexy outfit, or you went to the party, or it was your fault, you went into that dark alley, and people just condone it. And then you start to feel real guilt and shame because no one's coming to your side. And when people don't come to your side to support you in a violation, the amount of self-worthlessness and shame and guilt that take over your entire being is so devastating and so harmful for mental, physical, and emotional health that I can't even describe it. So what's happening right now in the world on a level of coercion for what you must put in your body or not, right? When it's your own body, everyone has the right. I mean, health is a birthright. Your body is your birthright. You decide what you put in it. That's up to you. So when personal violations are happening at a relationship level, at a personal level, at a community level, at a society level, at a global level, right? When you don't have people coming up to stand behind you, and it's happening worldwide, it's happening on a level that makes you feel smaller, right? When you're being guilt tripped and shamed into compliance so that you can be liked by your people, by your friends, by your family, by society, by the world, because you're a good person. Hey, it's not that you're a bad person. You've just made a choice for your body. And so this is the problem that's happening right now. But no still means no. Just like we would tell our children that, like, if someone hits you at school, no means no. Hands off. If a boy goes to rape you, no means no. If he goes to kiss you and you don't want to, no means no, right? If somebody tells you to do something that you don't want to do at a party, drink, take drugs, do something, and you don't want to do it, no means no. And this is the same situation that we have here. The situation of no means no, and that's okay, and it's okay to say no. We teach our girls this. We teach our boys this. We teach children this. We teach teenagers this. We all want teenagers to be able to stand up for their own boundaries, their own rights, and not just follow the crowd. We pray, we hope that they will do what's right for them. And we teach them no means no. When you say no, that's what it means, right? We want people to be able to hold boundaries in the workplace, in corporate situations, and legal situations. So boundaries are important. And when they're not supported, though, and when you're shamed at all angles, it can be a very difficult road to navigate. And right now what we have here is a situation where you're in a back alley with a bunch of gang rapists and no one's coming to your aid. Everyone's looking the other way. Everyone seems to think you brought it on yourself. No one gets you help. And when you say no, they're like, well, no doesn't mean no. This is what we've decided to do, so we're going to go ahead and do it anyway. And if you take us to court, if you try to go to a restraining order, the judge is on our side and he's going to say, doesn't matter. That's the kind of traumatic guilt tripping that is happening in the world right now. And I know that that seems dramatic, but for people who have a reason that they don't want to put something in their body, this is a violation. Right? For somebody who has a moral, physical, emotional, ethical, spiritual, whatever reason that they're not doing this, trust me, they have a reason. They're not just like, oh, I don't want to do this. They feel fear. They feel fear, legitimate, about putting this in their body. They do not want to do it, right? The person who doesn't eat gluten at the party isn't just a bad dinner guest who's out to hurt your feelings and not eat your recipes. They're doing something for themselves and their own body. They've made a decision that gluten and dairy helps their condition, and they're putting themselves first. Okay, so the situation of the people who are saying no right now, who are standing up, they're not bad people. They're not out to get other people sick in society. They don't want to catch COVID more than you don't want to catch COVID. They don't want to give it. They don't want to get it. They don't want to spread it. But they don't want to be forced, coerced, guilted, or shamed into putting something into their body that they've decided or they feel on any level will be dangerous or harm them, either ethically, morally, or physically. Nor should they ever have to. I'm going to say this again, and I want everyone to hear me. No means no. It means it for our girls, it means it for our boys, it means it for our little kids, it means it for our teenagers, and it means it for any person in the whole world right now who is saying no. No means no, and that's okay. It is okay to say no. It is okay to stand up for yourself. It is okay to put your needs first. It is okay to have clear boundaries. And you are not a bad person, nor should you be shamed or guilted for saying no for something that is a personal decision for you. And just like on a personal level, when you say no and somebody crosses that line and violates you, that's abuse. So just on the micro level, you know, in a specific situation or a specific relationship that's abusive, when you say no, that's a micro abuse. And on the macro level, we're seeing abuse by governments right now. We're seeing abuse by those in power. So abuse is abuse. No means no on every level, whether it's the micro level or the macro level. And shame and guilt are also abuse as ways to try to coerce people to do what you want them to do. That's a violation of a boundary. And in this case, a legal, ethical, and moral boundary. You know, society has come a long way, and we know it's wrong to abuse, it's wrong to judge, it's wrong to violate on any level, for religion, for race, for color of skin, for age, right? We don't discriminate, we don't force, we don't judge, we don't segregate based on color, age, race, whatever, nor do we do this to somebody who's choosing what to put in their own body. No, it is not different in this case because you're trying to uphold the health of those around you because the virus could get spread. No, that is absolutely not true. If you've chosen to get something that protects you and that thing doesn't work, why would somebody else need to put that in their body for it to work for you? Okay, so let's get realistic here. We cannot shame and blame people for what's happening in the world on which they or you have no control over, and what is being mandated isn't even working. So when it comes to personal boundaries that we need to put in place to heal ourselves physically, emotionally, and spiritually, we need to have value around this. We need to say this is important. We need to define it. We need to value it enough to uphold it and say this is my line. And very similarly, on the macro level, we need to say no if that's what we feel. And we need to defend that by placing enough value on ourselves, increasing our self-worth, not allowing shame and blame and guilt to pressure us, and knowing that it is okay and we are okay to choose this, right? Having enough value to fight for your freedom, to put boundaries around your freedoms, is the same as having enough value in yourself to decide to go to bed early, or that you're going to be eating healthy food and putting an exercise program into place. So just as we would on the micro level, we do so on the macro level. And even though it seems more challenging, even though it seems the forces that are against us are harder, there's more consequences. We're being shamed and blamed and guilted and pressured at a higher level. This situation is the same. The way we hold boundaries is the same. We state them clearly, effectively. We communicate as people are coming up to them. We place great value on them. We defend them and we believe in them. We believe and we defend in our own personal choices and values. And that's how we stand up for ourselves. That's how we build self-worth. That's how we build a life that we want. That's how we heal ourselves on the micro, and that's how we heal ourselves on the macro. We like peace as humans. We like peace. We don't like to make waves. We don't want anyone to be mad at us. We don't want people to not be on our side. We'd like to just be liked, for things to be easy and to feel safe and go with the crowd. That's what we want. That's what we like. So sometimes it is hard to stand up for what we want in our own boundaries and morals and ethics in the face of this. So, if any of you have watched my videos on fight, flight, or freeze, when we're put in a situation like what's happening worldwide, or even on your own micro level of healing chronic illness, oftentimes when we're feeling threatened, often we have tendencies. Some of us are extroverts, some of us are introverts. Some of us go into fight, some of us go into flight, and some of us go into freeze. So some of us are going to beg for help if something happens. Like if all of a sudden something came and an intruder came into your house and was going to rape or kill you and your children, some of us would go into warrior mode. We would begin to fight, right? Let's get this guy. Some of us would flee for our lives. We would barricade the doors. We would try to flee. Some of us would freeze. Some of us would be crying out for help. So it depends on your personality as to how you're going to react in these situations. And most of us, when it comes to it, we don't like confrontation. We only go into one of these modes, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response. We only go into these modes when we're pushed, when our safety is threatened, when we're threatened. And so humans can only be pushed so far. And when they're pushed into the threat of their own safety or their own health or whatever it is, we usually go into one of these responses. And often we don't choose them. We're not like, okay, we're going to stand up and be really vocal and we're going to be, fighting everybody on this. It usually comes down to our personality types and what we biologically are prone to do in these situations, in these life-threatening situations. Are we introverts? Are we extroverts? Do we fight? Do we flee? Do we freeze? Do we cry for help? What do we do? And it also depends on, what's happening, where your boundary is. Because like I said, there's not usually a line where everything on this side is okay and everything on this side is bad. There's usually a lot of gray in between. So where's your threshold? Some people's boundaries are a lot clearer and a lot more defined and a lot more black and white, and others people's gray area is a lot wider and a lot bigger. So somebody who's an introvert, somebody who likes the status quo, who's not a fighter, who's really a people pleaser, and who has a big gray area, like a big kind of gap in there as to they can be pushed further and further and further before finally they can't. This person is probably not the type of person who's going to get out there and sign petitions or hold up signs or go to protests or say no or be very vocal or fight their employees or do anything like that. They might stay silent, right? They might feel awkward. They might kind of freeze. They might run away. They might like to turn their head. Right? But no matter what your personality is and when you're threatened, when you sort of, your gray areas have gone away and you're pushed, right? Like an intruder breaks into your house and is threatening to kill your family, you and your family. You're going to go very, very quickly to your boundaries have been violated. The gray is gone. You're in a life-threatening situation, and you're either going to become a warrior, a fighter, a fleer. You're going to quickly turn into something that you normally wouldn't not. Now, a lot of people haven't been pushed to that point yet. Some have, and we see them. We see them fighting the world, and they're out there trying, right? And others have slowly not been pushed that far yet, right? They're in the gray. They're not sure. They sense the intruder coming, but it's not an all-out war yet. So depending on what your personality type is and depending whether you're a fighter or not, still, most of us have the ability to set a boundary and to say no. Even if you are an internal person, even if you like keeping the peace, you're a major people pleaser. Even if you freeze, you're very freeze orientated or flee orientated rather than fight. Even in these situations, most of us have the ability to say no, and no means no. And this is what we teach our kids. You don't have to fight. There is no need to fight. Your words mean something, and you can simply just say no, and that's okay. So we teach people this. We teach what the word means, what a boundary is, and that no means no, and it's okay to say no. That's why we teach this, because not all of us are fighters. Not all of us are screamers and yellers and conflict driven. So we teach the child. We say, you say no. You don't have to be the fighter. You don't have to fight the bully. You don't have to fight the bad guy. All you have to do is say no means no, and then go tell an adult. Go tell me. Tell somebody who's stronger. Get help. Get somebody who can help you. You don't have to be the one to fight this bully. Somebody else will do it for you. But in the case right now, when our governments are the ones doing this, and when other people who should be helping are turning a blind eye and turning away, we're left to do it ourselves, which is uncomfortable for most people who are used to getting help, who are used to just saying no and then telling those in charge to deal with the situation. Because it's when those in charge who are being the bullies or are being the bad guys, it's very, very hard. It's very, very hard to all of a sudden realize, like, my mom's not around, the teacher's not around, there's no grown-up around, I'm just a little kid with a bunch of schoolyard bullies, and I got to deal with this myself, right? This is a difficult situation, but we all come up against it at one point or another in our lives. So what do we do? What do we do right now in this world when we're being asked to do something that we feel might harm ourselves on a physical or emotional or spiritual or mental level, when we've already been undergoing and embarking on a health journey, and this violates our own boundaries for our own health journey, because maybe we've already sworn off taking any medications that could make us worse, right? A lot of people have, right? They're very careful. They don't even put gluten in their body. Why would they put this? So this feels like a personal threat. If this is the situation that you're in, what can we do? Most of us don't have the answer. But what I do know is that we can be clear with where our boundaries are. We can vocalize them. We can communicate effectively. We can communicate before we get to the point where our boundaries are crossed. We can communicate as we're coming up on our boundary lines earlier. The earlier, the better. And we can focus on self-love and valuing ourselves. We can focus on valuing ourself, by increasing our self-esteem, by increasing our self-love. Because when we increase our self-esteem, when we increase our self-love, when we increase our values, and we place more value on what we believe, our boundaries, our beliefs, ourselves as a person and a human being, the shame and the guilt and all of that falls away, right? Self-love is the highest form of healing. And so if we can love ourselves more, believe in ourselves more, stand up for ourselves more, value our own values more. So we must practice feeling proud of ourselves, feeling proud of our values, feeling proud of our convictions, feeling proud of our beliefs, feeling proud of who we are as people, feeling proud of our decisions. When we start feeling proud of ourselves, when we practice feeling proud, building our self-esteem, stop our own mental beating up of ourselves and criticizing and judging of ourselves, when we stop that, we start to praise ourselves, love ourselves, value ourselves, then we really start to stop all that shame and guilt, which is really the thing that gets us into these situations where we're not strong enough. To say no is no. I mean no. It's okay that I said no, and I'm proud that I said no, right? Because when we get to that point, then we can do it with love. We can do it with compassion for ourselves, belief in ourselves, conviction with ourselves, and we feel good about ourselves. And we don't let all that other shame and blame and guilt that the world is trying to play on us right now. We don't allow that into our space. So again, I don't have all the answers, but I do know that self-love is one of the most important answers that you can have. Be proud of yourself. Be proud of yourself for saying you don't want to eat the gluten or the dairy or put whatever you don't want in your body. Stand up for yourself with pride and admiration and love for yourself, right? You got to do it first. And when you do it, and when you say no with this sure way, no, I'm sorry, I just don't eat gluten or dairy. No, I'm sorry, I just don't put that in my body. I just don't roll up my sleeve for that. That's not something I do. And you have this utter conviction and belief and pride in your own choices and your own abilities and who you are as a person, and you feel self-love and compassion for yourself, then you're not going to be affected by everything else that's going on and all those other whispers and judges, because it's not going to matter, because it matters what you think, what you believe, right? You love yourself. So that's my advice going into this new year. That's what I would resolve to do. I would resolve to set clear boundaries and to value yourself enough to keep them, and to love yourself, to be proud of yourself, to stand up for yourself, to give what you need to yourself. That is what I think your New Year's resolution should be. I know that's what's going to be mine. And I think it will serve you in all areas of healing, from the micro to the macro, as we move forward in 2022. So if you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. And please share this. We're going to be coming at you with a lot of great content in 2022, along with my program. I'm wishing you a happy, healthy, pride-filled, self-love-filled year ahead. So I'll see you in the next video.